I know. All right, James 5. James 5. Let's get to work. We're close. We'll go this week. We'll take off next week, obviously, Thanksgiving. So we'll take that off and then come back and pick up some miscellaneous stuff. So maybe 2 more weeks after this, I think, so we'll be good. If you have any ideas for the spring, whatever you want me to teach on in the spring, let me know. I've actually been studying Song of Solomon lately just to kind of go, can I really pull this off on a Sunday morning kind of a thing? So I actually taught Song of Solomon in 1 hour with college students one time. So it was interesting. They left. It was, I did Song of Solomon at Burnt Hickory. I did Song of Solomon in 1 hour. And so it was as graphic as my "Thou shalt not commit adultery" sermon, so if not more. So it was fun. All right, James 5. We're going to talk about rich people. All right, so we're all off the hook, right? Whew. Except for Bobby. Bobby's rich. It's interesting. We always think other people are rich. When somebody says, "Well, let's talk about rich people," ooh, yeah, I know some rich people. All right, it immediately comes to your head, doesn't it? So he starts off 5:1. Come now, you rich people. All right, it's the second time he's done this. Look up a paragraph, you'll see it again. All right, in chapter 4. Who else does he say "come now" to? What does that mean? If you address someone or start a conversation with "come now, you rich people," listen up. All right, it literally means Ago, to be led over here right now, because we need to talk, okay? So again, James is writing, and I actually I was amazed. I told Ashley last night I was watching some video of some guy doing a James 5, and he actually was under the impression that James was the James that was beheaded in chapter 12. I was like, well, that's not even remotely true. But he's one of these, if it ain't King James, it's not even the Bible, which is always interesting because I wonder what did he do before 1611? But I don't know. It's like the Holy Spirit showed up in 1611 and went, "Here's a Bible, has lots of these in it." Jesus did speak King James English, so it's amazing. 1,600 years early. Anyway, so come now, you rich people. Who did he say "come now" to in chapter 4? Just paragraph up. The people planning ahead. Come now, you who say, "I will do this, I will do this." All right, so this is a very common thing. He's basically saying, now let me talk about these people. Now let me talk about these people. Let me talk about these. So come now, you rich people. So who is rich people? How do you define that term? Who's James talking to? Say it one more time. Definition. I thought that was like you'd memorize social studies definition from the back of the book somewhere. So how would you define rich people? Exactly. That's exactly how we define rich people. Somebody with more money than me. Now, I mean, look around the world. How are you doing relatively? I mean, you are stinking rich compared to the rest of the world. All right? We are all of us, even those in poverty in the United States, are well into the top 10% of wealth owners in the world. All right? So yeah, we are rich. Give me some examples, New Testament examples of rich characters in the New Testament. The rich young ruler, that's the easy one. Thank you for playing. That guy always gets it, the one that talks first. All right? Give me some others. All of the Pharisees? Okay. Jesus does say in Luke that he was talking to the Pharisees, the ones who love money. I would argue it was really the Sadducees who loved money, because the Sadducees were the ones who set up the marketplace in the temple and were extremely wealthy. Pharisees were more the rule followers. The Sadducees were there's those people in politics who just sit back and make a lot of money off this game. That's your Sadducees right there. Pharisees were rule keepers. So they were more ethical, if you want to call it that. All right. Who else? Give me some more rich people in the New Testament. One guy is actually called the rich man. And he has a person who sits outside of his gate. There you go, the rich man and Lazarus. Okay? And what did he do? He just died. All right? And Lazarus sat outside his gate, the dogs licking his sores, but the rich man died. And then what happened to the rich man? He did. We assume that. All right? Lazarus went to Abraham's bosom. All right? You got to understand, this is pre-cross, all that stuff. So the euphemisms are pretty cool. So the rich man goes into a hot place where he's being tormented. All right? And so the Lazarus goes into the bosom. All right? Others. Tax collectors. Give me some examples. Which ones? Huh? I don't know if it's the mask or you're just incoherent. Yes, one of those. Do you have names? I would hope so. Levi, Matthew. All right, same. We don't know. It's interesting. The Bible never mentions the wealth of Matthew, Levi. It does mention he has his own house, which implies some manner of wealth. It says he hosted a banquet for Jesus. Zacchaeus obviously was wealthy, all right? Zacchaeus, it implies he was one of the chief tax collectors. So not only was he a wealthy tax collector, but he also had people underneath him, all right? So had a little bit of a multi-level marketing scheme going on there, all right? They were wealthy. They were wealthy because they cheated the people, okay? Because how much does Zacchaeus give away? When Jesus says, come on down, I'm coming to your house today, he says what? I will give away what? Half of everything I own. How many of you can go, I'm going to give away half of everything I own and it not even mess with your expenditures? All right? Rich man. He was a rich man. All right? Others, can you keep going? Keep going. The Queen of Ethiopia. Wow. You're going Old Testament. Old Testament. Oh, the eunuch. We have no idea. He was riding in a chair or walking. Philip walked up among him. All right. He would have been a treasurer-ish type person. All right. Of the Ethiopian. Yeah. All right. I'll go with that. I thought you were talking about the one who visited Solomon and tested his wisdom. All right. Keep going. Give me some other rich people in the Bible. Lydia. And what did she do? Not Jesus, Paul. She was kind of, I hate to say it this way, she was Paul's sugar mama in Philippi, all right? Because she was a seller of purple. Purple is a very difficult color to make back in this day. There was a sea-type creature, barnacle-ish type creature just outside of Phoenicia, which northern coast. And so it was very hard to come by. So if you could have purple clothing, you were very wealthy. That's why purple gets associated with wealth these days. So, yeah, Lydia. Good character, bad character? What about the rest of them? Zacchaeus? Was Jesus wealthy? According to Creflo Dollar, he was, because the wise men brought him gold, frankincense, and myrrh, and gave him so much gold that he was wealthy. Which I don't know how you come up with that and go, see, I should get a plane too for my ministry and to fly around. Yeah, if you had enough faith, you would have enough. So I would argue against the theory that Jesus was wealthy because the wise men gave him gold when he was born, and 30 years later he was still living off that gold. That's a stretch, to say the least. So, who else? Herod was wealthy. corrupt, murderous, psychopath, all those things, yeah. Others? What about when the widow gives her 2 mites? What does Jesus say about the people who preceded her? Jesus says, all these people have come and they've given out of their excess. Literally, the image is you have a pile and you kind of, when you're baking or something and you scoop up the flour and you kind of do that thing, that's the surplus. That's what they were giving. So they still had their buckets of money or whatever, but they would give out of their excess. And she gave her last 2 wafer-thin coins, all she had to live on. So the contrast there, that sort of the antagonist there. Jesus also tells a parable of a man who had a field and just had a bumper crop and made all this stuff and decided to do what with it? What do you do with the excess? He says, I have so much, I need to tear down my barns and do what? Build bigger barns so that I can do what? Store all of my grain so that I will have it for the rest of my life. And what happened to him that night? He dies, all right? And Jesus says, you fool. The implication in that passage is what should he have done with the excessive amount of wealth that he had in this culture where people were literally living day by day asking for their daily bread? What should he have done? He should have shared. He shouldn't have torn down his barns just so he could hoard more. He should have just shared the excess there. In Corinth, Paul says, the rich people, these are the ones who take you to court and sue you. Why are you sucking up to them? Why are you trying to be the rich people's friends? All right? I was trying to think of others that I wrote down. Yeah, Zacchaeus. Barnabas. Barnabas evidently was a very wealthy man. He sold a piece of property and gave a huge amount of money to the apostles and disciples for them to distribute amongst the poor. Joseph of Arimathea, all right, member of the Sanhedrin. Jesus, he comes in real late at the story. We get him right at the end of the story where he says, hey, you can borrow my tomb. He didn't know he was borrow it. He used it, and we have a problem. Boaz, going to the Old Testament. Boaz was wealthy. He was willing to be the kinsman redeemer, which cost him. So he graciously took on Ruth as this kinsman redeemer, bringing her into the Jewish nation and into the Jewish people. So very generous with that. So, all right, I just want to get your heads going. Just want to get you kind of thinking through some of these things. All right, so come now, you rich people. The implication, if you are rich, what do you have? You have money, but not only do you have money, but what do you have? You're not indigent, you're not poor. Poor people have a deficit or enough to get them through the day. Rich people have what? They have an excess, all right? So what can you do with your excess? That's the question. What do you do with your excess, all right? So come now, you rich people. The imperative here from James, remember James has 26 imperatives, all right? The imperative here is this first word, weep. Kleio, you should be crying. You should be crying. You should weep. Weep and wail. I don't like the way they phrase this because it's not weep imperative and wail imperative. It's weep, wailing, participle, over the miseries that are coming on you. All right? Weep, wailing, it's the word for howling. It's the implication is in the Old Testament, in Isaiah, in Ezekiel, in Jeremiah. They would prophesy to nations, and they would say, you Moabites, wail over the day of the Lord. You should be wailing. You should be crying. Because this judgment is coming upon you. All right? And this is what James is going to imply throughout. So he says, you should be weeping. You should weep right now. This is what I'm telling you to do, rich people. Just start crying now. Wailing over the dread of what's coming upon you. Why? For having money? Is God going to go, all right, those of you with extra money, excessive amounts of money, I'm going to destroy you on the day of the Lord? Connect the dots then. Rich people, judgment's coming. Connect the dots. Okay. Okay. So there's actions in the middle here. It's not rich people, therefore wail because the day of the Lord's coming, you're going to pay. What's in the middle here?
What you're relying on for your safety and salvation.
Okay. What you're trusting in. All right. What else? Your lack of justice, what you're trusting in, the hoarding nature of this. Yeah. Steal widows' houses. I mean, that's Matthew 23. Woe to you, Pharisees, you hypocrites. You steal widows' houses. All right. That's bad, right? That's not a hard one. Okay. What else? What else do you put in here? Weep. Again, cry. Just start crying right now. And be howling, dreading the miseries. This word miseries, we get our word wretched from this in Romans 7. Oh, what a wretched man I am. This is going to be wretchedness that is coming on me. All right? So James is doing what here? He's giving the imperative to weep, but he's also doing what? What's he doing with this phrase? Come now, you rich people, weep, wailing over the miseries that are coming on you. If someone said that to you, what would you do? Just go ahead and start weeping and howling? Yeah, you might want to change that. Could this be implied as a warning? Yeah, I mean, that's what James is doing with this whole letter. He's warning the people, you're doing this, stop doing this, stop doing this, start doing this, start doing this. Imperative, 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 imperative. All right? Now, again, James draws a lot of his text from what other passage that we might be studying on Sunday mornings? There you go. Good answer. Good answer. Sermon on the Mount. All right? So we're going to see this because look what happens next. Your wealth is ruined and your clothes are moth-eaten. All right? Now come over here. Hold your place here in James 5. Come over here to Matthew 6, and let's see if that sounds familiar at all. See if we can line these things up. Matthew 6, verse 19. You ready? Don't collect for yourselves treasures on earth, or don't treasure treasures on earth, where what? Moth and rust destroy. All right? And where thieves break in and steal. Okay? Now go to James. Your wealth is ruined. Rust, maybe? We actually get the word rust in the next sentence. Your wealth is ruined, and your clothes are moth-eaten. Do not treasure treasures where moth and rust destroy. Sounds like somebody's big brother's been talking to him. All right? And so what does he do? He just turns it around to the Jewish people spread out all over the known world at this time. All right? Weep and wail over the miseries that are coming on you, for your wealth is ruined and your clothes are moth-eaten. Why is their wealth ruined and their clothes moth-eaten? If they were being employed by the poor people, would they be corroded, rusted? Would the moth eat? Has the moth ever eaten your clothes while you were wearing them? When do the moths eat your clothes? When they're in your closet, when they're put away. All right? And you get them out in the winter and you go, I'm wearing my favorite sweater. And you have a big hole in it right here. What happened? It sure wasn't being worn, right? That moth wasn't going, slow down, I can't catch up. All right? No, it was set aside. All right? What makes your wealth corrode? Lack of use. All right? So it's being placed in one place. Verse 3. Your silver and gold are corroded. All right? This is actually the word for rusting out. All right? You ever heard of something getting rusted out? All right? This is the implication. It's kata'o. Everybody get that? Kata'o. All right? It literally means down, out, rusted. Been passed along? Have you given it away? No, you put it in a pile somewhere. You hid it in a jar. You did something with it, and now you went back to get it, and what happened? It's corroded. It was like putting your silver, whatever stuff that you get out every Thanksgiving, and what do you have to do every Thanksgiving? Got to clean it up, got to polish it up, make it look nice for the kids and the in-laws and all that stuff, okay? This is the implication. It's not being used, so therefore it's going to be corroded, all right? And if it was being used, it wouldn't be used by you. It'd be being used by whom? You rich people who have excess give it to people who need it. Or, you know what, I think better yet, and this is just economics and politics in play right here, spend it. Go buy stuff, all right? You just go give it to somebody, and what happens to it? Who knows? Go spend it. That person turns it around and makes a profit. That person hires people. That person then goes and buys and sells, and that person then goes, buys and sells. So the economy grows. Sorry, that was politics. What? If you buy it? Yeah, but then you can give it away. See? See, but you spur the economy. That's a whole other thing we'll argue over later. All right? Your silver and gold are corroded, and their corrosion, their rust, I love this line, their rust or corrosion will be a witness against you. So next time you see that hole in your sweater in the closet, God's going, I told you. You left this. You have treasured treasures where moth can destroy it. And this is a witness against you. When your possessions get rusted or rusted out, God's going, see? You just set it aside and it's been neglected, because this is what happens to your treasures on earth, not your treasures in heaven. All right? So this will be a witness against you and will eat your flesh like fire. Is that a little harsh? That's not real nice. I mean, eating your flesh like fire, where's he getting that from? Your silver and gold are corroded, and their corrosion will be a witness against you and will eat your flesh like fire. Is that a literal statement? I don't know that there's a medical condition where your flesh gets eaten by fire from your gold and your silver. I think that would be a very bad thing, all right? So what's he doing here? Same way Luke says his sweat was like drops of blood. It's a phrase, it's a metaphor. He's not saying you will catch on fire, but again, that burning, that painful, that dread of what you did, it will burn within you, all right? So put it all together. Come now, you rich people, weep, cry, all right? So it should invoke an emotional response of dread, of pain, of regret, wailing over the miseries that are coming on you, all right? And I don't think he's just talking about your wealth is ruined, the moths are going to eat your sweaters, your silver and gold are going to get rusted, you're going to have to clean the silver and everything. I think he's talking about an end time thing, all right? Remember the parable of the sheep and the goats. Why were they thrown into the fire? Prepared for the devil and his angels. Because they did not do what? You saw me when I was hungry, and you gave me nothing to eat. I was thirsty, and you gave me nothing to drink. I was naked, and you gave me no clothing. Depart from me, I never knew you. See how this works? This is the dread of what's coming on. All right? And then he says to the sheep, he says what? Blessed are you, come into the kingdom prepared for you from the foundation of the earth. Why? Because when I was hungry, you gave me something to eat. You see how rich people, the excess, all right? And some people get caught up on this and they go, well, I've got to empty my bank accounts. And I always go, Jesus told even the rich young ruler, go sell what you have and give to the poor. Now, what did he not say? He did not say, go sell all you have and give all to the poor, did he? No, he just said, go sell what you have and give to the poor. Because he wanted him to empty out that, and he wanted him to be generous with it. He didn't want him to be in need where now people have to feed him. All right? And I think sometimes we make that mistake, that if you have any money, oh, you're horrible. No, your money is the ability to help people. All right? The only question is, will you? All right, so weep, wailing over the miseries that are coming on you. All right? Judgment's coming. Because here on earth, your wealth is ruined. Your clothes are moth-eaten. Your silver and gold are corroded, and their corrosion is a witness against you. You should notice that and go, I got too many clothes. I got too much money. I've got too much. I've got too much. Because look at what's happening. It's being ruined, all right? Go into your refrigerator. That mildew and mold on your cheese, you got too much cheese, all right? The bread, all right? That funky chunk that rolls out of your milk carton. This is a witness. This is a witness against you, okay, that you're being wasteful. You're being wasteful in some way. And just let it be an example. Just, again, I like the way James uses this phrase. It's a witness against you. It's a reminder, all right? And will eat your flesh like fire. So really be careful with that one, because no one wants their flesh eaten like fire. Because why? You stored up treasure in the last days. When what should you be doing in the last days? This again goes to the idea of readiness, all right? So what should the servant be doing when he knows the master is about to come back? What should he be doing? Should he be ready? Yeah. There's an urgency to this. You stored up treasure in the last days. And does that sound familiar or what? It's the exact same word that Jesus uses. You treasured treasures in the last day here on earth. And you didn't treasure things in heaven. All right? And with the judgment coming on you in this very moment, someone with excessive wealth, someone with more wealth than they need to operate on a daily basis, which includes how many of us? Pretty much all of us, okay? So that's why, and again, we go back to what we did with the church, the talent project. I really wanted everybody to kind of get a feel for what it's like to be generous and to see what that feels like. Because I've been poor all my life. I've been on church staff all my life. I've never had excessive wealth. I'm like 25 years of let's just get the bills paid, all right? Let's just get the bills paid. I've lived around a lot of people that are wealthy and had a lot of wealthy relatives who are miserable, which that's a whole nother story. But just to be able to give away. We used to take the college students when I did college ministry trip, and we would go to ministries and we would show up with $5,000 and go, okay, what do you need? We're here to serve you and work for you for the next 8 hours or so, and we'll buy whatever you need. We got $5,000. What do you need? And I would let my students just run it. I would be the bus driver and put out fires. And we would go, and they would go, well, we could really use a new computer. One church, I'll never forget them. They were Clay Cross, the old singer guy, Christian artist. He was doing a church plant with the DeGarmo and Key. You know, remember those guys? This is like ancient. He was the pastor. Clay was the worship leader. And we're sitting there, and his sort of one of his ministry guys, interns, was like, I really need a new computer, but this one will do. I said, well, what do you need? Well, I need this one, but I said, then it's done. And he looked at me with this very confused look, like, you're actually going to go to the Apple store in Memphis and buy me a computer? I went, yes. What else you need? And he was so confused as to this person being generous with him. He didn't know what to do. And our college students spent, I guess we did 3 or 4. I don't remember. Did we do 3 or 4? I want to say we did 4 because we did one in Atlanta. But they literally got trained giving away thousands of dollars. Yeah. We spent about 6 months earning the money. We pulled from the Ephesians 4. It says, no longer steal. The thief should no longer steal. He should work hard for his money so he has something to give away, which is a really cool transition when you think through that. The thief should no longer steal. He should work so that what? He has money to give away. So you go from a thief to being generous. That's a really cool sentence right there. So that was our theme verse for the thing. And so they would come up with $1,000 on their own, do work on their own for about 6 months out of the year, and then we would just go blow it. So cool. All right, just helping out churches, pregnancy centers, Baptist campus ministries. We bought one campus ministry a golf cart so they could get around school. But what we wanted to do was train them up and say, look how much fun it is to give away. One trip we did to Atlanta, we just went all over the place. And we ran out of money at the end, like on the very last night. And I was like, we have no money. Let's go give blood. So we drove to a blood bank with 20 college students and said, we're here to give blood. It was like, we're out of money, so we're just giving blood now. Such a fun trip. But again, that mentality that you have to get into, because what's a natural tendency? A natural tendency is to do, hold on to it, hold on to it, hold on to it. And God says, no, you're treasuring treasures here on earth. That's why I call it the Lord's Dare. All right, keep going. So come now, you rich people, weep, wailing over the miseries that are coming on you. Your wealth is ruined, your clothes are moth-eaten, your silver and gold are corroded, and their corrosion will be a witness against you and will eat your flesh like fire. You stored up treasure in the last days when you should have been giving it away. That's my commentary. Look, verse 4. You may have a different word there. Look, behold. Has anyone said behold this week? Behold, the laundry needs to be taken upstairs. Behold, the dishwasher needs to be unloaded. Behold, go mow the yard. All right? It's this idea of you need to open your eyes. It's a Greek word eido, which means to perceive with your eyes. Look around. Just look. Get your eyes up. Look. The pay that you withheld from the workers who reaped of the Lord of hosts. All right? Now, that word host, that sounds like somebody who works at the front of the restaurant and takes you to your table, right? No. Get that out of your brain, all right? The Lord of hosts, the host is the armies, all right? The hosts of angels is not sort of a small little group of cute little things that flare. No, this is like a battalion of warriors coming at you. And so when the Lord of hosts hears the cries, is that really what you want? The Lord of angel armies is another way of translating this. You've heard the Chris Tomlin song, the God of angel armies. This is this idea. 2 Kings 6. 6? Don't hold me to that. Elisha is holed up in some little cabin somewhere. And his assistant's going, oh no, the armies of the Arameans have surrounded us. What are we going to do? And Elisha goes, God, can you open his eyes so he can see really what the dynamics are in play? So he goes back out and looks, and he sees the Aramean army surrounding their little cabin, but then he sees the hosts of heaven on the mountains surrounding them. Yeah, in flaming chariots, not just chariots, flaming chariots, hosts of heaven. And he goes, oh, we're good. All right? That's who will see, and that's who will hear when you treat your employees improperly. All right? And why would you treat your employees? Why would you withhold money from your employees who've worked hard? The implication of the text is they've already done the work. Why would you withhold money from them? Yeah, you're greedy. You're greedy. You just want to keep it for yourself. Let's look at some text on this one because I want you to see that. Go to Deuteronomy 24. Doing sword drills tonight. And this is almost an exact statement. You got to remember, Deuteronomy is the pep rally that happens right before they go into the promised land. Okay? And Exodus and Leviticus and Numbers are before they get to that point. All right? So the 40 years, all right, that's kind of Numbers. Exodus, Leviticus is the giving of the law, and we get into Numbers where we get over to here, all right? And then Deuteronomy is, everybody huddle up, let's go into the promised land, okay? So you have to read Deuteronomy all together if you're going to do it right. Everybody with me on that? So Moses says, all right, you 2 million people, huddle up, Deuteronomy. So read it as one thing. In Deuteronomy 24, verse 14, do not oppress the foreigners residing within a town in your land. Okay, now he's saying this not like in the moment. He's saying when you get into the promised land, here's what you want to do. Do not oppress the hired hand, okay? 15, you are to pay him his wages each day before the sun sets because he is poor and depends on them. Otherwise, he will cry out to the Lord against you and you will be held guilty. That's a pretty clear-cut promise, isn't it? Moses tells him, better pay him before the sun goes down, or he will cry out and the Lord will pay back. Come over here to James. The pay that you withheld from the workers who reap your fields cries out. Now what's going to happen? What does Deuteronomy promise is going to happen? Otherwise, he will cry out to the Lord against you and you will be held guilty. God takes the cries of the poor and the marginalized very seriously, especially when it's one of his other kids that's harming them, all right? And the outcry, you may have a different word for this. The worker who reaped your field cries out. This is the word krazo. What word do we get from krazo? Crazy, all right? So this crazed cry. So when the workers, when the reapers, they cry out, krazo, what are they doing? Are they going, well, that wasn't very nice of him. I'm very disappointed in my boss who's doing this. Is that crazy? Is that krazo? No, that's like you're screaming and yelling. You get home and you slam the door, you kick the cat, you beat the kid, whatever you just hitting stuff. And you're crying out, God, why? God, why? God goes, no, I got you. I got you. All right, but it's a crazed cry out. And the outcry of the harvesters has reached the ears of the Lord of hosts. Anybody have a different word than outcry? It should be outcries of the harvesters. It's the word boe. Okay, let me paint the picture. Jesus comes down from the Mount of Transfiguration. Everybody with me somewhat? He comes into the village, and his disciples are having a conversation with a father whose son is demon-possessed. And the disciples, the 8 of the disciples, could not drive out that demon. So the father then comes to Jesus and says what? Help me. Help me. Jesus says, you only must believe. And he says what? I do believe. Help my unbelief. See this word help? He's pleading for help. Okay? Krazo is you're crying out, and then you're begging for help. The misthos, the wages, you withheld, right, deprived in your strength because you're stronger than them, right? Because you're rich. This goes back to that Corinth thing. Don't suck up to the rich people. They're the ones stealing your money. They're the ones taking you to court and taking your stuff away because they have strength, because money is strength, right? Right? Yeah, it is. It's just a fact, all right? The workers, you withheld the money from the workers who reaped your field, cry out, all right? And the outcry, the pleas for help. Who are you pleading with? From whom are you crying out? These cries for help. Who are you crying out to? The Lord. And he's going, I heard you. I heard it. The outcry of the harvesters has reached the ears of the Lord of hosts. 250 times it's used in the Old Testament. I always say, it's the Lord that will mess you up. You do not want this cry coming to him. All right? Especially when he uses that phrase, the Lord of hosts, the Lord commander of the angel armies. Don't you withhold. 5, you have lived luxuriously on the land and have indulged yourself. Okay, physical descriptions. Yeah, he ate locusts. Just chew on, well, sorry, that was so horrible. Think about that for a second. How many of you have ever eaten a locust? On purpose. On accident, that would even be even worse. I mean, running down the street and a locust flies in your mouth. That's so horrible, all right? But imagine eating that as your sustenance. And honey, he didn't go and get the little bear and wash down his locust, right? Where's he getting honey? Wherever he can find it. So imagine that honey, and then throwing down a locust. And how was he dressed? Camel hair garment, which, you got to kill that thing. And generally, you don't kill camels because they're pretty valuable, right? So how do you get a camel hair garment? You find a dead one, okay, and skin it, and you make a garment out of it. And he has a leather belt on. How do you get leather? Again, you find it, all right? So he's wearing dead animal, roadkill, keeled over dead clothing with a leather belt, eating locusts and whatever honey he can find. No. Neither does Jesus. Because Jesus is asked about John the Baptist. And he says, you people who went out to see him, did you go looking for somebody living luxuriously? And all the crowd does what? No, you should see this guy. This is the epitome of not living luxuriously, okay? But this is what he says. You people, you've withheld money, and the Lord of hosts has heard. You have lived luxuriously on the land, which means what? You've consumed the land. You've consumed all the good of the land. And what have you done with it? What's your level of living? What's your standard of living? As opposed to the people who are reaping the fields. Because remember, you withheld their wages. And so what'd you do with their wages? You bought you a new car. You bought this. You did whatever you wanted with it. You got bigger piles. You got bigger barns now. And you have indulged yourselves. All right? This is to see the needs of others and to have plenty and hoard it for yourself. All right? Now, what was the sin of Sodom and Gomorrah? If someone says Sodom and Gomorrah, what sin comes to mind immediately? Yeah, the angels walk into town and the men of the city say, we want to have sex with them. Bring them out. And Lot is so gracious. What does he do? Here's my daughters. They haven't been with men. You can have them, but don't mess with these guys. Because Lot has an idea of who these are, and he knows that will not end well when you try and do that with an angel. All right? They blind him and everything. That's not what Ezekiel says. Go to Ezekiel. I want you to see this. Ezekiel 16. Now, some people will take this, and they're sort of the Matthew Vines of the world who write books and say, the Bible's really cool with homosexuality. It's not a big deal. They will use this phrase to change and say you should not use Sodom and Gomorrah as an example of why homosexuality is wrong. Okay? I don't know how you do that. I think you can have sexual immorality and be greedy and self-indulgent at the same time. But what they want to do is take this passage, Ezekiel 16:49. They want to take this passage and go, no, there was no problem with homosexuality. It was just that they were greedy. Well, I'm thinking, if I read Genesis account, it wasn't exactly God going, wow, that's really cool that you guys are doing that. But I don't like the way you withheld money and withheld food from somebody. Ezekiel says this in 49, and I'm going to tie this in with this. You have indulged yourself. Let's start in 48. Yeah, 48. As I live, the declaration of the Lord God, your sister Sodom and her daughters have not behaved as you and your daughters have. Now this was the iniquity of your sister Sodom. She and her daughters had pride, plenty of food, and comfortable, this is our word for indulgent, this is the exact same word for indulgent, comfortable security, but did not support the poor and the needy. They were haughty and did detestable things before me, so I removed them when I saw this. So 50 contradicts the very things that they're trying to argue against. They were haughty, prideful, plenty of food, indulgent, and they did detestable things, abominations, which exact same word that Moses uses for homosexuality. All right, that practice of homosexuality is described as detestable, abomination, all those words. So it kind of undercuts the argument. But again, I just wanted you to see that. The sin of Sodom described here is what? They were prideful, had plenty, but yet they lived indulgently and did not provide for the poor and the needy. Same word from James 5. You have lived luxuriously. You lived in your ivory towers. Again, Jesus says, did you go to look for John the Baptist and see how he lived luxuriously? And they all kind of laughed. He's not laughing here. And they have indulged themselves, which means if you're indulging yourselves, living in luxury because you withheld pay from your workers, and the Lord of hosts hears about it, how's that going to work out for you? What should you start doing now and not wait? Weep, wailing over the miseries that are coming on you. See, James is warning them. James is warning them. You have fattened your hearts for the day of slaughter. What's the day of slaughter? Yeah, it's Judgment Day, the day of the Lord. All right, you go, just do a search of day of the Lord, and you'll see it over and over and over. It's always this day of horror. Go. In a day? Okay, give me a second here. Because that's one I did not look up. Though I should have. James 5. Oops. 5:5. You have fattened the hearts of you in the day of slaughter. In, it's literally in. I don't know that it's that different of a for the day versus in the day of slaughter. I don't know. It's just not consequential, I wouldn't say. All right? Because it is pointing to what? Again, this coming misery, this coming wretched, this is going to be so wretched. This is going to be so miserable, this day of the Lord, for you, because you have fattened your hearts. I don't know what to do with that. I don't know how you fatten your heart. You've nourished your hearts. I don't know if you want to emphasize the word your. You fattened your hearts when what's happened to the rest of everybody else. Maybe you've fattened your hearts, you've prepared your hearts, you've inflicted your heart. Yeah, the word is to nourish. You fed yourself when you could have been feeding others. And this will result in this judgment. Again, you go back to sheep and the goats. It's the exact same thing Jesus is saying here. All right? 6, you have condemned. This is a judgment, a judge's order. All right? You have condemned others, kata krino, all right, to speak down, to give a judgment down to. And you have murdered. Literally the word phoneo, which means just to murder someone. And he's tying these things in together. So, woman caught in adultery. They were right there on the verge, ready to do that. They've got rocks in their hands. So if they've condemned her and then they start throwing rocks at her, they've done essentially what to her? If they do not have the authority to actually do that judgment, that condemnation, or that sentence carried out. Murder. So this is what he's saying. This is the example. You've condemned this person and you've actually murdered them. All right? Now, does that mean you actually threw rocks at them, killed them, stabbed them, shot them, whatever? What if you just neglect the poor person on the side of the road and 3 days later they're dead? Did you murder them? You sure did not murder them. I love Groundhog Day. Not the actual day, the movie. Do you remember the scene where he tries to help the homeless guy? And day after day, he tries to help him. I don't know if you've seen this part, but it's really the gut-wrenching part of the movie. And every day, the guy dies. Because no matter what he does, he can't get to him in time because he only has that one day. He just lives this one day over and over, and he just cannot get this guy to live through the day. And I thought, that's kind of the example. Just the neglect can kill people. You have condemned, you have murdered the righteous. He does not resist you. He does not go against your power, your authority. He does not resist you. Why not? Why doesn't the poor man just resist? Why didn't the poor man fight back? What power does he have? What power does the poor man have? So the poor are at the mercy of the wealthy, the strong. And this is their society. And it was I don't want to say it's an unfair system. It's just a system. It's a human system. All right? The poor are always at the mercy of the wealthy, the powerful, the strong. And God says this, I'm watching. Because you're my child and they're my child. And if you hoard what you have and fail to tend to them, to neglect them, there will come a day where we will settle up our accounts here. You will not be able, we talked about this, you who judge others yet do the same thing. Do you think I won't judge you? Do you think I'll just give you a pass because you walked into a building once a week? No, you're going to be judged. The parable of the sheep and the goats comes right into play. I almost wish James would have kind of referred to that. I don't know that was that widely circulated because James was not there when that was spoken, theoretically, if it was on the Mount of Olives with just those 4 disciples hearing it. But that's the thing. And we have, Ash and I have talked about this thing called the tyranny of the majority. The majority can make the rules, right? And that majority can make rules that tyrannize the weak, the minority. And you can see it in every country, in every era, all the time. You always see this tyranny of the majority, but there will come a judgment day. So it's a warning to all of us. Don't treasure treasures here on earth. Moth and rust are going to destroy them. Thieves break in and steal. Right? Treasure things in heaven. Treasure the treasure in heaven, which meant to do kindness, to do mercy, to do good. Right? This is what that meant. Right? And so it's be very conscious of that. And I always say to young people, I used to doing college ministry for so long, they were all poor, eating ramen and drinking Dr. Czech or something, whatever, drink soda. I'm like, just because you don't have cash doesn't mean you don't have time. Doesn't mean you don't have the ability to do things. Doesn't mean you don't have the ability to say kind words to someone. Doesn't mean you can't go over and rake a yard, mow a yard, babysit a kid, do something. So you can be generous with more than just your wealth. In fact, I would say being generous with your wealth is sort of the easy way out. There's a lot of people in churches that will go, well, how much do you need? I'll just donate to the cause because I don't want to go to the homeless shelter. You need to go to the homeless shelter. You need to get out there and see something. So, anyway, questions? Again, do you see the parallel between Sermon on the Mount and this? Again, you see this all the way through. Because his big brother said all this stuff. A lot, I think, not just once. So, all right, cool. Hey, well, we're going to talk a little second coming next week. So, thank you. The week after. So we'll take next week off just so you can give thanks. Let's remember to whom we're giving thanks. I think it's very easy to say, I'm thankful for blah, blah, blah. Remind yourself not just to be generically thankful, but to be grateful to God. Grateful to our Father who provides for us. Grateful to the Father in heaven that we get to call out to. All right? It's just something I always try and remind people that Thanksgiving is not just a verb of thank you, thanks, I'm thankful for. Name the person to whom you're thankful, even if that's another person. I'm thankful to this person for doing this. I'm thankful to this person for doing this. And I thank God for giving me this person who can do this for me. Always name names. It changes the dynamic. And also say, don't just say thanks. I try not to say thanks, say thank you, because now you're actually identifying that person, and it's a lot more heartfelt. So, all right, cool. Let me pray first, and we'll go. Father, we do thank you for this word. We do thank you that you compelled James to write these imperatives down, to send them out. I thank you for the heart that you gave him, the desire he wanted to share these messages, so many of the messages that his big brother taught him. I pray that we would take these messages and these lessons and these imperatives to heart, that we would look deeply into your word, that we would see where we need to move the dial, where we need to change directions, where we need to be more and be less. Father, continue to remind us. May we go back over these imperatives. May we look at them closely. May we really meditate on them and be good disciples so that we can be pleasing to you and pleasing to you in all things, so that we can not just be righteous, but also be inspiring and be encouraging to others as well. So, Father, I thank you for giving me this beautiful church and these disciples that are just so consistent to come out and learn your word. I pray that you would bless them and reward them for the time that they've spent here tonight, that you would just renew that to them. And I pray this in Jesus' name. Amen.
We'll have a musician for Sunday morning.
We're good?